Kyle Rittenhouse,
Yes.
Daniel Penny,
Yes.
Canadian truckers.
Yes.
What is GiveSendGo at its core?
We are a social crowdfunding platform that exists. We have one mission, and our mission statement, we repeat it everywhere we go, and that is to share the hope of Jesus through crowdfunding.
Fire and water meet, going down deep, sing, oh, oh, bury me, carry me, oh, oh, far beneath, oh, oh, fire and water meet, watching me think everything free, yeah, oh, everything free, down to the river, yeah. Down to the river.
Hey everybody, we are out here in the beautiful free state of Texas, in the heart of Fort Worth. And so we're going to be talking about everything from grace to leadership to entrepreneurship today. But I'm going to ask for your grace a little bit here because we are outside and we have had everything from military choppers to trains to protests and everything in the background. So if it gets a little loud, you'll have to give us some grace. So anyway, I'm Kyle. I'm your host of Sheepdog and Shepherd, where we talk about God's hand in law enforcement.
And I'm Greg, your co-host. I'm a pastor at the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville, Florida, where I lead our prison campuses and first responder ministry. And I have the privilege of being a chaplain for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Now, Jacob didn't know we were putting him on camera. He literally just got off a plane coming down from the not-so-free state of Massachusetts. But I saw him, and this guy is a brother in Christ. He's a fellow entrepreneur. He is the co-founder of GiveSendGo, which is the only platform that law enforcement today officially endorses and uses for all of our crowdfunding endeavors and initiatives. And I'll tell you, the best way that I could describe it is you are a Christian alternative to GoFundMe, and way cooler.
Yeah, and we stopped using the term alternative and said replacement because we believe that in the world of free markets, which we still live in, that our business model is better and we will be the household name that everyone knows, and they will diminish into history for being a platform that decided to cut off at least 50% of the market of their users. So we love people, all people, that people from the wide variety of the spectrum of life. So,
all right, so I'm sure you guys have heard of the platform before. If not the platform, you've heard of the stories that put this platform on the map, and you need to know these stories. Kyle Rittenhouse?
yes.
Daniel Penny?
Yes.
Canadian truckers?
Yes.
What is GiveSendGo at its core?
GiveSendGo is a social fundraising platform that is available now in over 80 countries. We call ourselves the global leader because our competitor is only in 19. So we're outpacing on those fronts. But we are a social crowdfunding platform that exists. We have one mission, and our mission statement, we repeat it everywhere we go, and that is to share the hope of Jesus through crowdfunding. As people, as they enter into the spaces where they need to raise money for whatever cause that may come at them. It might be something great like adopting a child or going on a missions trip with your church, but oftentimes it's tragedy. It's difficult moments in life, and it's in all of those moments that people need more than just money. They need a recognition that there is hope in the midst of the circumstances that they find themselves in. So we realized right at the beginning that our mission wasn't just to help people raise money, but it was also to share the hope that we have with them in the midst of their broken situation. And so that was the genesis of the platform 10 years ago. We were just hitting our 10-year anniversary today. It's crazy.
It's awesome.
How quickly it's gone by. But yeah, we're a fundraising platform that shares hope with people.
Awesome. So Jacob, by the time people watch this episode, your current headache or opportunity, depending on how you look at it,
yes,
is going to be history. But the lessons that have been learned and the biblical principles upon which you have made the decisions surrounding the lessons that are going to be learned here will not be history. So let's talk about what you guys are dealing with right now.
So we have a campaign on GiveSendGo, highly controversial. It's a campaign where a very tragic situation where a couple of, I'd say young boys, because they're the age of my son, 17 years old, not too far from here, actually, I think a half an hour or so from here, who got in an altercation at a track meet. And one young man made the tragic decision to kill another young boy at this track meet. And as happens, our competitor shuts down campaigns that they disagree with. And our platform stands on the rule of law, but also on the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law, not public opinion, not mob rule. There's a reason why we have these tenets built into our legal framework. And so this campaign came on to GiveSendGo. We don't solicit these campaigns. We're not like going out saying, hey, bring your horrific situation to our platform so that we can be in the midst of this situation and have to navigate it with you. But we're happy to be a part and share the hope that we have when they do come. And so it's now on our platform. This young man is and his family is using our platform to fundraise for his legal defense. And so that's what's taking place. The outrage around it was very surprising for me, because in the past we've allowed these campaigns, but they happen to be campaigns that situated themselves on the right side of the political aisle. People like you mentioned, Kyle Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny in New York City, even Derek Chauvin, the police officer involved with George Floyd, and the other police officers. We've had many police officers involved in very difficult situations that have been kicked off of the other platforms, have to use GiveSendGo as a means to support themselves in that moment. And we allowed them, as we should, because people do deserve these rights that have been afforded to them in our Constitution. It's a due process, this presumption of innocence and until proven guilty in a court of law. These are, I think you may have said it, we're a Christian founded company. Our tenets are Christian based. And the reason why we stand on the principles we do are not because of arbitrary whim or even profit motive. That's been suggested. This is all some profit motive thing. And I'm not going to deny at all that we aren't a business. We are a business. But if you actually look at our revenue model for how we make money, we're a free platform. We operate on voluntary donations from people. It's completely free will. So if people don't want to give to us, they don't have to. And our platform is free to people. So that's some of the framework. I don't know if you have additional questions you want to dig into around that, but I'm happy to go into any of the nuances of what this case looks like and why we've stood by our guns in the middle of it, what even more of the controversy is around it.
Yeah, so I mean, let's dive deep, man, because you and I had a conversation beforehand because we reported the story, right? And honestly, I didn't realize at first that you guys were running the campaign. And I was like, here we go again, another crowdfunding for a criminal. That was my gut reaction. You and I have the kind of relationship where I could be very honest with you. And then I saw that it was you and I went, uh-oh. I had that moment and I was like, oh no, that's my boy. He's going to be catching some flack right now.
Well, the original report I heard was that it was a GoFundMe account that somebody had set up for
Right.
them.
It was originally,
Yeah.
and then they got some flack and shut it down.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I have my beliefs about it. And so I came up to you and was like, so, Jacob, what's your take? And your answer was so good. It was so fair. It was so rooted in constitutional and biblical principles that I went into it ready to completely disagree with you. And at the end, I went, wow, this man is a true leader, not just in business, but in the Christian community, because you raise the bar for all of us. Your organization forces us to question the decisions that we make that are sometimes based on pride and sometimes based on stubbornness. And he knows better than anybody that it's tough to get me to step back and go, yeah, I was wrong. But you know what, man? The decisions that I made about this, the assumptions that I made were wrong. Not about the individual, but around the why. So, Jacob, I'm going to ask you the same thing on camera that I asked you before. What's your take on the whole thing?
Oh man. Okay. So I don't know if I'll be as long-winded as before,
But be as good, because that was good, man. That was a good answer.
No, it was because it's true. So truth has a habit about being good, but also being hard. Because truth, by its very nature, is exclusive. It excludes all the other realities, and it becomes very difficult for people to wrestle with because it is so blunt. And I think that that's what makes some of these things so hard to wrestle with sometimes, because they are hard. Truth is hard, and it actually causes you to have to question your motives, like you said, and really dig down on the why behind some of this. So if you look where we derived our legal basis for the framework of how we operate in Western society, it's fundamentally rooted in Christian biblical principles. It's amazing. And people dismiss our value system and structure in this modern context at their own demise. And John Adams said, our Constitution is only fit for a moral and religious people. Like, our framework was built with a moral underpinning that pointed to that there was a creator who loved us and is directly involved in the affairs of men. We hold these two truths to be self-evident, like things imbued right in the fabric of the world. And so part of that conversation is exposed in the biblical narrative. And I was talking with you about Abraham's discussion with God in the book of Genesis chapter 18. Fascinating discussion. Abraham is going back and forth with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. God's like, I'm going after these bad guys. And Abraham's saying, well, there's a couple of good guys in there. And there's this dialogue back and forth. And out of that discussion back and forth, you can unveil a principle. And the principle is that it is more unjust to convict an innocent person wrongly than it is for a guilty person to go free. And when you look at that, and this is God making this judgment. He's like lowering the standard. All these bad people I want to destroy. And Abraham keeps whittling him down from 50 to 45 to 40 to 30 to 20 to 10, like whittling it down. It's like, okay, I'll save them all for the sake of saving these few good people. So you see this value perception of protecting the innocent in this moment. And so we derive out of these principles that it is better for us to give the presumption of innocence to people rather than the presumption of guilt. And there's reasons that are even pushed further as the biblical narrative. You go into Proverbs and what Solomon has to say in Proverbs 18. He says, the first person to hear a matter thinks it's right until the defense comes and gives the second part. It's like, wait to hold your judgment until you hear the whole scenario. Paul talks to Timothy and he says, don't just let anyone accuse an elder. There's got to be multiple witnesses. Like, there has to be a weight of accusation, but the onus is on the accuser, not on the accused. That part of the idea behind presumption of innocence is that you can't prove a negative. When you're innocent, proving that you didn't do something is trying to prove a negative. It's extremely difficult to do. So it shifts the burden onto the accuser. This was written about even in the old Babylonian texts. The Code of Hammurabi mentioned the same idea. It's been around forever. It's been recognized to be the foundation for good operating societies. It's written in the Magna Carta almost 1,000 years ago. It was put into our Constitution, in the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, due process. All of these things have created a framework for us to operate and flourish as a society. This was all intended for human flourishing because we serve a God who is a life-giving God. He is the I am. He is the life giver. Everything that comes from him is for the purpose of human flourishing and for life to flourish.
Totally.
So all these concepts are rooted in our knowledge of the Bible. And then we say, okay, how do we apply them to the context of this scenario? It's easy to apply them to maybe a Kyle Rittenhouse, where he's seen running away from the people that are attacking him. Or even a Daniel Penny, who is standing up in the face of somebody that's being an aggressor and going after people. So it's easy to apply the principle there. The problem with getting subjective about principles and applying them when you want to is that they become nullified for everybody over time. And I mentioned this. This is the reason why we have so much divisiveness in our culture today, is we've undermined principle living in our society. We created a framework that was principled based upon morality, and morality that derived itself from a moral lawgiver. It was recognized that there was a moral lawgiver, moral laws were set, it wasn't subjective, and they created the framework for our Constitution and our way of life in our legal system. And then in the 60s and 70s, we said, you know what? We don't need God anymore. And so all of a sudden, the foundation for how we derived morals from there which we derived principles began to pull apart. So principles were no longer something that you could trust in, and people would use them because when you remove God from the scenario, God doesn't disappear. He just becomes you. That's like, you become God. It's either there is a God or you are God.
Yep.
And so we've shifted to no longer God, but I'm God. And so the principles are just based upon human convention and my own desire, which is whatever I want at any given moment. And that creates racism because it's subjective. It doesn't apply to everybody. It's based upon what I feel at any given moment. So principles have to derive from a moral lawgiver, and then it reduces racism. It reduces sex. It reduces all of the tensions of society. But because we've removed God and we've become God, and now it's human convention, all of a sudden, all the ills of society that were diminishing as a result of being founded in a biblical rooted place are now creeping back into our society.
Yeah.
Because it's like rules for me, not for thee type of thing. And so you come to this case and we can say, you know what? It looks different. It does look different. But as a platform, and GiveSendGo is a platform, we have to say, okay, are we going to allow campaigns for people accused of violent crimes? And we can see scenarios like Daniel Penny and Kyle Rittenhouse where we say it was necessary. There was unjustness. We could see it. So we set the standard of this is how we're going to operate as a platform. And then comes along a case where it looks different, but the accusation is the same. Someone accused of a violent crime. How then do we operate under those same principles that are supposed to, biblical principles that are supposed to apply to everybody? Do we then begin to change the rules based upon what we see? No, we go back to biblical principles and we say, well, should I prejudge the matter based upon the limited knowledge that I know? Because I tweeted this out the other day. I said, the only fact in a legal case is that the public doesn't know all the facts. Or the first fact in any legal case is that the public doesn't know all the facts.
True.
Like, we've seen that a million times over, and we refuse to get on board. And I've been talking for a long time.
No, you're good.
But this is how we think about what we think about when we engage with this. And I hope you can see that we have done some thinking about this.
100%.
Like, this is not some like flippant position we put ourselves in.
It's not only have you done some thinking about it, you've actually gone to scripture and done the research. Like
Right.
you obviously have put a lot of biblical thought into this.
Right.
I'm going to take this part and hand it off to Greg. But when you talk about it is better to allow a guilty man to walk free than an innocent man to be convicted, that sounds a lot like Barabbas and Jesus to me. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, you're equating Jesus
Being an innocent
being
man.
the innocent man and Barabbas being set free when he was completely guilty. And when they brought Jesus to Pilate and Pilate gave the Jews the option, they clearly chose to free the guilty man
Right.
and convict the innocent man.
Right. And Pilate went like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Yeah.
But you're not going like this. You're going, you know what? We're in the fight.
Yeah.
But we've thought this through. And we have based our entire business model around scripture.
Yeah. I was just gonna, I think we had a conversation at some point previously about judgment and how we talk about wanting justice for some and grace and mercy for others. And it's a very delicate balance, man. We can't ask for grace and mercy for some and justice for others. I don't know if that comes into play in y'all's decision. You know, I mean, you have to take into account the social media lawyers that are out there. Like you said,
I know.
the public does not know the facts of the case,
Yeah.
and yet everybody's judging.
I know.
And I'm not saying this kid's innocent or guilty. I'm just saying
Yeah.
he has to be tried in a court of law.
Right? There has to be balance to the process. Otherwise, it becomes rule of the mob, and that is the destruction of societies. So there's obviously there's presumption of innocence as a value that we hold for our platform when these things come across our table. And then there's the value of free speech in your ability to give financially to causes that you value. And that's a whole nother side of it. It's like, okay, you got presumption of innocence on the campaign owner creator side, but then it's the community that wants to donate. And an extension, the Supreme Court in our country has ruled that your giving is an extension of your speech. Yep. So you wrestle with the question of freedom of speech as well. Sure. And that's a whole nother area where it's like the foundation for life is in speech. John 1:1 clearly shows that the Word became flesh and life was created out of the logos, the speaking of God into creation. Like literally the act of speech brings life. It has the potential for life in it. And yet we want to close down speech, and the byproduct of it is death. Yep. And that's what so we, again, there's multiple sides to this equation, but on both sides, we wrestle with whether you can have a campaign, but then we're wrestling with, should people be able to give to it, whatever. It's like, well, canceling people's speech is not a good thing.
Right.
It's never been a good thing. It actually stops you from ever knowing truth.
Yep.
It literally creates death. That in the human condition, we aren't God. We don't have omniscience. We don't know everything. So the way that the biblical model for the approach to truth is through seeking and endeavor. It's through a wrestling process. And that in the human, in the variable of human frailty, what that looks like is the conflict of ideas. Because I don't know everything, you don't know everything. So the way we get to truth is through the friction of our ideas, and out of that pushes us closer to truth.
Well, listen, man, it's no different than during COVID times and 2020 times,
Right.
Where we were almost entirely deplatformed from Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere else,
Right.
because we reported on the Hunter Biden laptop. We were told that's Russian disinformation, that's false, that's fake news.
Yep.
We're going to shut you down, we're going to silence you, we're going to ban you. And guess what? Spoiler alert, it wasn't fake news.
Right.
And so the good guys have never been the ones who were silencing people that they didn't agree with. It's never worked out before in history, and it never will. I actually love the Republican Party has launched a whole new campaign called Let Them Speak. And it was let AOC talk. Let Crockett run her mouth.
Right.
Like the more that they talk, the more their approval rating drops. Cool. I don't agree with everything that he says. You definitely don't agree with everything I say, vice versa. But I believe that we all have our right to speak. And the second that we, as the private sector, begins to attempt to silence the voice of anybody, whether it's the voice of being able to have a campaign, the voice of being able to donate a campaign, that is where our nation just begins to die a little bit at a time. And that's where we have to really examine our biblical roots.
Right. Completely agree. You can't get more fundamental than speaking and life as a byproduct of it. Like it says in Deuteronomy, life and death is in the power of the tongue. Like, and we have this power. This is why we have a pray button on GiveSendGo, because we realize you can speak life into people's difficult situations. You don't even need just money to engage with our platform. Right. You can just, one of the biggest feedbacks we got from people, the Kyle Rittenhouses, the Daniel Pennies, in those very difficult moments, they're like, it was amazing to see that amount of money being raised, but I didn't care. I came home every day and I read through these messages from people that just said that they were praying for me, and that got me through the depression of those moments. And I realized that, that the value of providing an opportunity for people to speak into personal campaigns of other people and what it can do.
Amen, man. That's pretty awesome.
So Jacob, I clearly heard, understand, and agree with your response to Kyle's question. I don't like the term devil's advocate because I don't advocate for the devil at all. But I'm gonna play that role for a second.
Sure.
You were recommending a vegetarian restaurant instead of barbecue.
I've never recommended a vegetarian meal for anyone in my life. So when you look at, let's just say the O.J. Simpson case, where obviously financial resources play a role in someone's defense.
Right.
Okay. And what appears to be probably a guilty verdict, but because of financial resources, a good lawyer and the ability to provide a good attorney can potentially flip a conviction.
Right.
Let's just assume that's what happened. I'm not saying that's what happened.
Yeah.
But we're going to live under that assumption for a moment.
Okay.
How do you react to the possibility that the case that you're talking about right now,
yeah,
the possibility that the crowdfunding that's coming in right now for that teenager could potentially create the ability to potentially hire some really good attorneys,
right,
that could potentially flip a conviction for what appears to be probably a guilty verdict?
Sure. That's a great question, something that we've thought about. And so there's an element to that. We talk about economic disparity. So we've looked at the framework of our society, and we realize that some people are better off economically than others, and that wealthy people afford themselves of private defenses all the time because they have the financial ability to do so. So with our platform, we say it actually levels the playing field. It actually creates parity between the wealthy and the economically dispossessed. And it places the stress of the issue back on the justice system to fix itself. I heard an interesting story yesterday. First time I ever heard this. And I was like, oh my gosh, the term going postal. We've all heard it. There was a moment decades ago where it was a real reality in society where postal workers were shooting at people, and they began to dig into why was this happening, particularly in the postal worker framework. And what they found is absolutely fascinating, that there was a massive disparity between pay and work stress. So postal workers were underworked and overpaid. It's like, what?
Wait, say that again?
Postal workers were overcompensated and underworked.
Okay.
So there was this
Sounds like half of my staff.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
you couldn't
Just the
get
opposite.
fired. They literally lived in a scenario where there was zero stress and overcompensation, and the byproduct of that was they went bad outcomes because there wasn't equal parity with proper compensation for proper work. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, you get paid a lot. You can't lose your job. It's like this quasi-governmental thing. Like, you can do whatever you want. You do your route in 3 hours, and then they tell you to go screw off somewhere because we can't have you finish so quickly. And this is how it works. And so they saw this and they said, wow, when you have these massive disparities, it actually creates bad outcomes because there's no stress on the system to actually create proper balance. And I was thinking about that and said, is there a relationship here between disparity in our systems, which we're now bringing back into equilibrium, which is going to put stress on the system that will actually create a proper, it'll bring correction to our justice system. And I was like,
force a fix.
Force a fix. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's interesting. I wonder. So but I do think, one, what GiveSendGo does is provides parity. Like, it shouldn't just be wealthy people that have all the money in the world that get the best legal defense. Let everyone afford the best legal defense, and then it has to become the same for everybody. Like, and it will almost right the ship, I think. And that's kind of how I've thought about it. I think time will tell. I think, again, like what we've seen in society is all of these societal institutions and structures crumble because we've taken away any of these foundational things, or we've had disparity. And now as we bring it back together, it's actually going to rebuild our society. So I say what we're doing, as hard as it is, like we talked about hard truths, it actually is going to be a unifying element for our country and for the world. It's going to bring life again. It's going to re-inculcate our society with things that are life-bringing. And I really believe that. I really feel like that is what God's doing in this on some level. And I also, and this was really a hard truth. Say hard truth is what I felt God saying to me when we had the Kyle Rittenhouse campaign hit our platform. We were like in shock because we had never had anything like that. And all of a sudden we're getting massive amounts of hate, like massive death threats, doxing, like we're going to kill your children. We're going to kill, like just crazy, crazy stuff, which we're getting now from
Our people.
Like literally, I've got a voicemail I can show you of someone saying, I got your number now. I'm putting it on TikTok and it's going out, and be ready because you aren't a Christian and you aren't all of this stuff. And then I hope we're going to, stab all your kids and your adopted children and blah, blah. Like, it's just crazy.
And you're not the Christian.
And I'm not the Christian. Exactly. Yeah.
And you're the one supporting a killer.
Right. Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of irony to this entire thing.
Yes, it is crazy. And
and also to be clear to people who are watching this, they don't put up fundraisers.
No, we don't.
They are a platform.
We don't give to them
for all of you and all of us to put up fundraisers. Well, brother, stay strong in the fight, man.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so grateful that you came out here to support all of the men and women who are being inducted into the National Law Enforcement Hall of Fame today.
Yes.
Now do you understand, guys, why GiveSendGo is the exclusive platform that we will ever recommend, endorse, or support for crowdfunding? They're the only platform that are truly grounded in biblical principles. I personally know the family. I've seen their heart. Just an incredible organization. And so, brother, I can't thank you enough for continuing to serve God through serving all of us.
Jacob, thank you, brother. Appreciate all you're doing, man.
Thank you, Greg.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for hitting that share button. God bless you all. God bless America.
I'm Michael Litz, founder and president, CEO of Invest USA. Let me thank you, Pray.com, for most importantly being a part of Pray for our first responders, showing your support as Romans 13 dictates that we do, and helping to restore America to values and the principles, which in turn makes America great. America is only great as the goodness and the values and principles that it espouses. You are doing that on Pray.com. We thank you for your support. We thank you for caring for our first responders. God bless you. God bless America. Revival is coming in the days ahead.